more than any other command. Where is the ref? Yeah. So this ref command was a binary. It was a probably a executable file. Also, you can use this command called file, which will tell you what kind of file you're using. You will use this thing in the Stego. I will come to talk about it. So you can see it's an ELF executable, 64-bit. And what I did was I applied. So usually when it comes to executable files, don't like use cat, because you will see lots of it will also print the non-printable characters. So instead use strings. You'll just print those which are printable. So rev1, and you can just go through those commands and you will see stuff like original flag on the server. So shouldn't try this one, but here you see there is something called cooldude96. So tell me the secret code, and it's checking for cooldude96. And you try this code online, and that will give you the flag. I will tell you another way when I will. Okay, so you can actually look into if you're given a binary file and you want to know the logic of that. For that case, you can use something called the deassembler tools, right? What it does is basically not deassembler, what is called decompiler or deassembler.
Disassembler. Jita is a decompiler.
Yeah, I'm talking about decompiler, because that way you will get to know about what is the underlying logic. So I've mentioned this tool. It's pretty handy. Wait, what?
And it is one of the most dangerous tools on the planet. It was created by NSA.
Exactly. So, yeah.
The National Security Agency in USA.
So why dangerous, by the way? Like if I use something will happen or what?
No, like you do not use it to do dangerous stuff, but other people do.
Oh, okay, that's it. So
people have reverse engineered the military software using this tool. So you do not want to do that.
Why not? Give it a try, guys.
Unless you want to be tracked by FBI.
So you can analyze the code over here. Here's this. The only thing I do with this like GHydra is just look at the code and nothing else. I do not know much of the functionality. So FBI, if you're listening, I do not use this thing.
Just open the main function, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do. Open the main function. There is something like win function and flag, something like that. So, okay. So what it does in the main function, it's setting some buffer and it's calling a vuln function. So here's another vuln function over here, and here it is. If you can just, it's putting tell me the secret code. So it gets printed. Then it's using gettys. Was it meant to be binary or like buffer overflowed? Not sure. Anyways, but like over here, then you get this cooldude96. It's comparing with cooldude96. So either way, you can get this one. The reason I was able to use strings and get this one is because you see, this is in normal text format, right? And that's why when you do strings, this gets displayed. In most of the other cases, it will be like something like other hex values or something like that, and hence it might not get displayed. We will discuss this in the pawn challenges. So we're done with this one. Krishna, are you recording, by the way?
Yeah, recording is on.
Cool. This is Rev0. This is, I think, what it is, like a architecture, like what we call that?
Assembly, yeah.
Assembly language, yeah. Assembly language code. And do we have this? Do we have this in us?
I had a solution, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, you will have this, but you will not exactly have this architecture. You will have 8085, which is a very old standard, which didn't even have the multiplication commands.
Lol. So
and it was 8-bit. So
Okay, so like this is the assembly instructions. Now I will ask you to get used to one of the assembly instructions, because when you do pawn challenges, it comes very handy. So you can learn the assembly. I think the basic assembly language. I think
what? 64 assembly.
Yeah. Also, like tutorials point has a very good type. AXSEMBULY, and which programming, I think tutorials, part tutorials, GPU. Where was it? Yeah, tutorial pointer is very good. Like it is starting from everything. It is. I think I went through this challenge, this thing. You can go through it as well. And regarding the architecture, the most commonly used architecture is x86, the 8086, right?
No, 8086 was a different kind of no. 8086 used x86 architecture. So it is called the x86 architecture, and currently it is we are using x86 64, which is a 64-bit extension of the x86 architecture.
I see. Got it. So, I don't like. There is nothing much about this command. Okay, so like, the way you explain it. Go ahead.
Okay, so main thing is the first command you see it is the MOV. The move command is basically it moves. The second is the source, and the first is the destination. So you move from the source to the destination. And the CMP command compares the two operands. If the two operands are equal, then the zero flag is set. As the zero flag is set to is unset. So what happens is that in the processor we have some special kind of flags, like the zero flag, the overflow flag, and things like that. So here, the GZ command checks the zero flag. So we see that EBX and ECX are not equal to 0. So it will not jump to L1, but it will jump to L2. So the first instruction in L2 is IMUL, that is the integer multiplication. So the output of both the commands is stored in the EDX EAX register pair. So can you show the registers or no? Okay, great. So currently the computer, the x86 language has many registers, like it has the EAX, EBX, ECX, EDX, EDI, ESI, ESP, BSP, and there are about 16 registers, yeah, in x86, and x64 has many other mode. So yeah, you can see that, but the most important registers are these four ones: EAX to EDX, and the index registers that are the EIP. Sorry, you have to see that EIP was, I think it was that. But yeah, currently the most important part in this program is these four instructions: IMUL, sub, move, and add. So IMUL is the multiplication, sub is the subtraction, move is the move instruction, and add addition instruction. So if you just compute it, you will get the answer.
Yeah. So like, the question was mainly targeted towards to check if you're familiar with the assembly language, and that's it. Like nothing,
Yeah, but
there's nothing logic in it.
you can use a NASM compiler and directly execute this program without using anything. Do you have that code, NASM Gola code?
No, I took WhatsApp. Okay, I'll add it down in the readme, I guess. And
yeah, just add it later. So what you can do is, instead of calculating, you can just put it in a 32-bit compiler, and you can just check the output. What is the value of EAX? You will get it. So it's a very easy way to do it.
yeah, so like if the code over here, I think you can just multiplication, addition, subtraction. If it is very complicated with lots of logics, like conditions and everything, you do not have to manually check it. You can just compile it and get it. It's similar to given, let's say you're given a C code. What you will do is just execute the C code and you will get the output and you just do it. You do not have to manually just go through the C code. You don't have to dry run the code, right? So similar thing. If you're given an assembly code, you can compile it with NASM.
Send the command in meet.
What command? Oh.
The command is sent, but wait, I will send a code also. dev0.asm, right?
Oh, wait.
So you send the command in the meet.
I have done that thing.
will
it go?
I
don't think it will go. No, it went.
It worked. So
yeah. See?
What is this? My God. Wait.
Take the message also. Yeah.
It's wrong. DB then the last two lines. Last
Yeah.
line is
My one's gone.
both are gone. Mine one is this one. So it will
What's
be
above?
yeah.
What will I do? I'm confused.
Wait,
Copy Anik's entire thing and replace the last line.
Okay. What's the file format?
.asm.
This one, right?
Yeah.
Game shouldn't use. Oh, then no. What was the command that you gave? The compile.
Last if that one.
it's in the file only.
Lol.
That's why I kept it in the file.
F0 is a file. I'll change this test. Just a second. Wait, what? What's this file and directory? Do I need anything for this?
Normally you shouldn't need one. I think you have your sources broken somewhere.
A high chance. Like maybe that's why the even the 32-bit compiler was not working properly.
So you can try LF32. No. The linker is not working.
Okay, let's not waste time right now. Let's move
Okay,
on.
yeah, move on.
Ref2, what was the ref2? Are you mad? Do you remember ref2? Let's see the ref2. What was it? Okay, so it gave me, there was just one binary file, right? Oh, okay, I remember now. Remember you solved this question, right?
Yeah, maybe. Forgot.
Yeah. Okay, wait, just a second.
Open it.
Ref2. Analyze
Main function. Open the main function.
main function.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I
So-
have this code. Wait, it's easier to watch. So code.c. Yeah, this is the file.
Yeah, right. So what Gitra did is it just decompiled the file, but the variable names will be a little weird, of course. So the most interesting thing is the array called local68.
This one.
Yeah, the local68, and the input that you're giving is stored in local28.
So let's do
So-
one thing. Let's just replace local 28 with input and local 68 with. I think local 68 is a flag, right?
No, it contains a
Okay, let's-
like Zod version of the flag
Even I think.
event.
Okay.
So you can just move a bit it down. The most important line here is this one, line number 43.
Exactly. So this is where
Yeah. So this
if-
is where the magic is occurring.
just explaining this thing. So you can see over here, the variable is set to false. And then it's just printing and scanning, scanf. Then it's running a do while loop infinitely. Inside the do while loop, there is a particular check. And inside that check, there is one like bwhere is checking if bwhere, then it's printing the flag. So our main target has to make sure that this variable is true. Now look at where this one is getting true. It's over here. And exactly at this particular point, there is a particular given condition. So what we can do is, this is the kind of typical reverse engineering questions that you will get. You have to make sure, like basically you have to brute force and you have to check for those particular file. Okay, local C is nothing but index, right? So I'm just going to replace it.
Yeah, it is a counter.
Yeah, so it's an index.
Yeah.
Control enter. So for a particular like INP of index, it's XORing with a particular value and it's adding index to that and it's checking if that is equal to given index. Only then it will make it true. So, and if it's not true, it's going to print try harder and it's going to move on, keep doing it for all the entire message. So what the decrypt code does is exactly the same thing. You can see, okay, let me change it over here as well.
Yeah, it contains the important part here. Local 66 given.
And
Local
local
28 is the flag. It is the flag.
Local 20 is the flag. And local 60 is the index or count or whatever. So if you see what Depender did was basically he extracted the important logic and placed it over here. Let me just he's looping through the entire flag. So over here you can see 0xe. 0xe stands for 15. So it's looping through that, and it's going from 0 to 255. That is, he's brute forcing all the possible characters, and is checking which character satisfy the condition. If it does satisfy the condition, he's going to assign. He's going to keep it assigned and move on to the next character. In this way, he got the. I think yes, he got the flag over here. That was the basic way, and. I will suggest what I used to do initially was write this the decrypt.c code in Python, but it would be a lot of hectic because you have to rewrite this logic in Python, and you can write this in C and you can just copy paste the entire logic over here exactly. So
and just run it. So how it will just print the flag, nothing to show there also.
No, so the Gitra part once again.
Decrypt.c, I guess.
Anish wants to see.
So basically, when you put the file, the binary file in Gitra, he what it does is it decompiles the code, and the reason you see local 68 is gives the manual some random number for this variables. And over here, there are lots of, you can see this is a symbol tree, like every function is actually a symbol. And you can look over the main function. Always try to go to the main function because, every C function will have a main. Also, one more thing I should add is that not every file can be decompiled. So if you look at the file command and do the rev2, this is one important thing. It's not stripped. What it means is that there are some debugging symbols which are present in the file. As a result, decompilers like GIDRA is able to decompile it properly. Otherwise, it will decompile, but there won't be any main function or something like that. It will be very, garbage type. What do you want to see, Anish? But by the way, just clicking on the main function, you can see the logic over here. If there are other functions, it gets all the functions like putters and everything. And I just copy pasted this code into the code.c and you can reverse engineer this. Any other question? Cool. So, moving on, going to Stego. This one I'm not showing again. It's basically having Morse code. So you can just Google Morse code to text. And there was this one Morse code audio to text, sorry. And yeah, you can use that, and you can just upload the file over here, and it will give you the the Morse code value. The reason I know it's a Morse code is because there's some beeps and something like that. It's typical of a Morse code to be. Moving on to LBS. So this is like if you know, there's one technique of steganography known as the LSB, which stands for least significant bit. So LSB image steganography. Again, it is LSB or LBS? It's LSB. Okay, so this is very common again. So you can look into this, and most of the time you do not have to manually get the data which is stored there. You can read about LSB image steganography. LSB image steganography occurs mostly in PNG file, but also I think this is a PNG file probably. Let's look into it once again. because PNG file, normally all the images have RGB, right? But PNG file also has another parameter known as the A, which is stands for opacity. Let's see, this. And you can manually, you can actually put data over that in that opacity file, and that will give you the, what we say, it will not affect the entire image, but you can encrypt data into that. So that's one way. What have the file? It's a Stego, sorry. LBS. Yeah, so let me just download the file once more. Mistake. Yes. Save. So again, whenever I get a file, I do run the file command, and it detects the PNG file. How does it detect? We'll do in the next part actually. It's a PNG file, and so what you to do is to change this is a variable name to PNG, and that will work it. I have the PNG, and if you look into the PNG, it's that Ubuntu 20 wallpaper. But there is some data, as the name suggests, it's an LSB, and for that I had this tool called ZSteg. Okay, so ZSteg. Okay, you can find this name of the tool in the list I've mentioned in the. I will give it to you guys. There's one awesome list over here. You can find it actually. There are many other tools as available, so you can use any one of them. I use ZSteg, and I think I have to give the file name first. And it looks for all the particular bits available, like the B1, the RGB, LSB, and XY, and it does a lot of things. And you can see the flag is over here. This was my approach. Not sure if did you guys use any other approach? Okay, let's move on here. Next comes the feedback forget. On the same ground, I'm going to solve the expector pattern. So it gives a PNG file. Let me download this. 406 expect org.png. I'm changing it as org.png. And if you look into the file, it says data, so it cannot actually read what the file is. Now, when I said the file command detects what kind of file that is, it's because of something called the magic bytes or the file header, right? So it's a file signature, also not file signatures. So every file starts with some kind of a signature of its own that tells that it is a PNG file or a JPG file or whatever it is. And this is a Wikipedia list of all the file signatures. And if you search for PNG, PNG files will start with 89 this particular hex values, right? But if you look into the PNG file over here, and to get into the the file headers and everything, you can use this command called hex edit. It will display the file in hex format, and you can edit this as well. So org.png, it shows the file. So you see it started 69559E, which doesn't exactly match, only one digit is off, so it should be 89. So you can save this one. Then it should be 50, then 4E, then it should be 47, 0D, 0A, 1A, and 10 is like everything's okay. You can see it also says PNG over here, and I think that's one of the factors. And I'm going to save this one. Now, if you run the file command in the org.png, you see it detects it properly. There's another file called PNG check. So if your PNG file is not just you see there is a lot of segments. Sorry. Every data has a means something. It has a particular meaning. For example, this I think from this part to this part, there are certain RGB values that are mentioned. And if at some point the value gets, someone tampered with the data, you can recover this one. you can recover that one. You can use the PNG check file for that. You can see it says OK, so the PNG file is OK. If it was tampered, I actually changed the file, but it will not give. It will just show where you have made mistakes, something like that. So this is a really nice command actually. Moving on to Polyglot was again completing the. It was just take this file and grep the flag. You'll get it. That's not how forensic problems like standard forensics will have something like memory dump or something like that, and you have to extract information from that. And I think we're done. We are going to move on to the web. Web, the Mr. Robot, this is a very standard Pico CTF. Actually, most of the problems are copied from Pico CTF, to be fair. So like Mr. Robot, there is something called robots.txt file, which by now, if you have solved this problem, you will know about it. So what it does, it's every search engine has a kind of crawler, right? Like who crawls the entire websites, all the web pages. And what they first do is they look into this files called robot.txt. So even like Wikipedia will have its own robot.txt, I guess. Anyone that has robots.txt? Oh, okay. Here. Code forces?
Code forces, I don't know. CodeChef had.
CodeChef doesn't allow scrolling, right? Yeah.
Oh, Facebook does have that.
I don't want to open my Facebook right now. Yeah, so you can see. So it says it will allow you this particular endpoint. So you can go to a particular site and basically access the PNG. But you cannot allow the changelog.txt. I mean, it should not allow actually. I mean, we can allow, but we should not go into the our crawler should not go access denied. Lol.
Yeah, only a normal user, your authenticated user will get it.
Exactly. So here also that was the reference where are robots. So it was a reference to the robots.txt.
So robots is actually used to prevent those bots from reading something on your site.
Yeah.
There are good bots, there are bad bots. So it's up to you whom to allow.
Yeah, you can just make a bot which will just read the ones that are in the disallow. So, and it says there is a particular HTML that is disallowed. So you're not a good person. We'll go there and there is the flag, right? Next is my first React app. This was a kind of like a nice problem. I haven't seen this problem before, but they made a mistake. The mistake is, did they bring this down? I chance they brought it down. Yeah, probably they have brought it down.
Try pinging it.
Oh no, it's there.
Oh.
Okay, it's there. So the question was really nice. I like this one, but they made a mistake. It was running in development mode. So you can basically go into the source and read the entire source code. And most of you guys might have done this approach. You've just searched GLUG. And you've got the flag, but it was supposed to be in an environment variable, and it wasn't supposed to. You cannot just Google it and find this one. The intended approach was that if you have worked with React apps before, React has something called state, where it maintains the the current state of the application. So you can it's evident that when I'm entering certain values, it's checking with something, right? That actual correct value is stored somewhere. And if you're if you work with React, you will know it is stored mainly in the state. So you can install this thing called React DevTools. It's mainly when you will be working with React, you will be using this one a lot. And you can look at all the components and the the props and state, everything. Over here, you can see there is something called the state. It's set, and you can actually change it over here. So if I just change it over, okay, I have to refresh this one. In this case, the answer is this one. So it will be checking with that answer. And what you can do is you can just make it blank, and it will just make you win over there, and will console it log over here. This was the intended solution, but since it was running in developmental mode, so you can just search the script and everything. Otherwise, this one will be minified and everything, so you won't be able to properly look for it. I think environment variables given in Heroku are also not present in the script in production mode, right?
There shouldn't be.
Like,
They
over
made a
here,
mistake by putting it inside the export stream.
yeah.
That shouldn't be here. That should be using process.env.
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's but there you can see over here all the environment variables that are logged
Yeah,
in.
just
So
directly put it there.
yeah, they made a mistake. But it was still nice, like appreciate it. Moving on. So again, a very standard question. This one will finish like you challenges. Sorry. Just, opening in a new tab. It says cookies, so you have to do something with cookies, right? So you can go to cookies with the application, go to application, and here you will see the cookies. And here is all the cookies that I mentioned. Now again, like most of you might not have guessed it but if you have solved CTS before, what you need to do is you can just change this guest user to admin, and that will give you the admin privileges. So if you refresh it again, it will use that particular cookies, and here you can see the flag. So this was the only thing. It's very kind of like typical web challenge problems you will get online. Then again, one more kind of like a brute force stuff, 1,000 visitor. And every time you open this one, it will give you a random number, like from 786 to something like 700. It was given me something 500 or something. Now you could do one thing, you can just keep on refreshing this page again and again till it reaches 1,000, but you shouldn't. That's not the approach you should do. Instead, they have given a hint that we have cookies for you in case you feel hungry. And so again, I'm going to look into the cookie, and you will see that there is a cookie for us, which is a user ID probably. Like every user is given with this particular ID. Now, I'm going to show you the networks tab once. If I refresh, what's happening is that it made a GET request to this particular website. And if you see, there is a particular cookie that is attached to it, right? So if you have this cookie and make the GET request again and again through some other format, like using other applications like curl or Postman, the website will think it's me, it's the same user. So you can use this, you can to write a script. So I don't remember the exact line. I think it was like curl minus v and slash cookie. And then you provide the enter cookie as a key value pair. So over here, copy this thing, paste, and you give the website. Curl minus I. Okay, so it made me, and you see, it made 178, right? So when it made this request, it thought it was me, and it increased the value from 168 to 178. Now, if I refresh this page, I made two requests through curl, so it becomes 179, and this one makes 180. So what I can do is I can just loop this particular command again and again, and it will do it for me. I don't have to manually reload the command every single time. You can just loop it in this terminal only. So like 100, not 100, like 3. Do command. If you know bash properly, like then things get easier. And over here, I just looped it in the bash terminal, so you don't have to write. So it's going to loop it up 3 times. So it will become 183. Now if I reload, it will become 184. Supposed to be. You can see. You can just loop it again for like some 200 to the required number of time, and you will get the value. Moving on. 100 visitor. I hate injections. So as the name suggests, it was a SQL injection challenge. And so there is one more SQL injection payload GitHub. So this one nice list for SQL. Okay, you can read more about SQL injection. I highly suggest that because it's very common, and I close the stack edit. You'll find it in more CTFs and also a common vulnerability. So what is this thing? I'm going to put this one payload over here. So there is a lots of payloads given over here. You can see an entire list, and you can see there are different types of SQL injection tools like SQL Map. If you're using Kali Linux, you will have one SQL Map installed over here. I will like suggest you not to use that. Try to understand the thing that's happening. I probably use this one, and it worked for me on the very first chance. So you can put anything in the username, and you can do this one. So what it's doing is probably actually I don't remember to be honest. So
If name equal to this one or password,
yeah, so
like
I
a
feel,
common, yeah.
there was an online resource which showed you like you can read about more of this. So what W3C has a very good tutorial. So SQL injection, SQL tutorial. Yes, you can do this one. So SQL injection.
This one doesn't have, I guess. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So
Select
here
asterisk from users where username equal to, yeah, this one.
so
No,
here
not this one. Niche wala.
okay, Nisha, yeah.
Select asterisk from users where name equal to John Doe and pass equal to my pass. So here name equal to anything.
You can put name anything. And when you're putting this password over here, you see what's happening is it's checking what did the ultimate command become, where name equals to this one or this one, and pass equals to was blank or this thing. And I think this thing is all and empty string equals to empty string. Now this one is always true, right? So this entire condition becomes true, and it gives you access to the server. Basically, it thinks that you are the right person. And this kind of vulnerability exists in very old website. Also, if you look at, I think it exists only in PHP websites. You can see over here, login.php is used. So, and it's said injection. So I thought it would be an SQL injection attack. I think MongoDB also, like you can also do Mongo injections as well, MongoDB injections. Possible. Yeah, so I mean the NoSQL injection attack, not MongoDB injection. And you can read more about it as well anywhere. Exactly, talking about this. OF.org is a very good website for all the attacks that are available. And where is the OF? Vulnerabilities in this one. Yes, it shows all the list of all the vulnerabilities that are possible, like from the CSRF to CLRF, CSD injection. It's a good thing to to have an idea, because more on like this, you're participating CTFs later on when you will participate in bug bounties and stuff. So you will be using this kind of attacks only.
Okay,
Moving
Arnab,
on.
I think we should conclude soon because
Okay,
it's been
yeah.
long. Anything important is there?
I don't think other one, because for the pawn challenges, I will suggest you to learn more about. I think okay, I'm going to give you another resource. Live Overflow. You can suggest to this. The binary exploitation challenge here. So you can go to his YouTube channel, and he has created a complete playlist for the binary exploitation. This is like a one. It does not have everything, but yeah, it can give you the idea about what kind of attacks are possible. I'm adding that as well. And if there are any other resources, I will keep on adding over here, and we'll send it to you guys. Yes. You can do the next part another day. I don't think there is anything left, because at this point, if I explain the pawn challenges, most of you, I don't know if you will be able to understand this one, because it will expect you to know about assembly language and a little bit about the GDB commands that we'll be using. So yeah, we can conclude right now. Any other questions or anything you guys want to say? How many are there? It's just these guys. I know these guys. So anyways, so yeah, I think let's end over here. Is assembly language in our syllabus? No, I don't think so.
It will be in your third year.
Oh, it will be.
Yeah, in microprocessor.
But don't wait for that. Like, I mean, you don't have to know everything. Just like you can understand what's going on, that will be enough. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, literally, I don't know much about the assembly language, but some of the commands that say like MOV, the CMP command, what it does, and I was able to solve these 3-point challenges as well. So I think knowing a bit will be helpful. And if you're targeting to participate in future CTFs. Easy peasy. Okay, at this point, if you guys have any, like, if you want to leave, you can leave. What should I say? I don't know.
In the respect to Patronus challenge, when I get the exib data, there was something saying glug and then
Yeah. Okay.
magic number, yeah.
True. So that was kind of like a bait for you guys. So most of you guys have been doing that one, like searching this file. So it was in the file this way. And this. So have I changed this one? Okay, I'm going to just get this entire thing over here, right? This one. Most of you guys have been confused with this one. I thought this one is the actual.
Yeah.
So
Then I searched about magic bytes, but yeah, I was copying the same byte. Whatever I didn't correct it.
Same for me. I also did it.
So this, I was actually confused. I thought like this one has something to do like this is something called XMP data, which is the metadata that is provided to any kind of file. I thought I have to extract this one from the PNG and then I will get the real PNG. I was thinking too much, but yeah, it was simple, just changing the bytes. That was it. If you have tried to solve the Pico CTF challenges like the 2018, 19, 20, try to solve those. The reason is that those are very basic. Those goes to, like the learning curve is very smooth over there. Like it slowly goes to a higher level. It doesn't jump to a higher level. Like this time, like after wave 1, most of you were stuck at wave 2 challenges. But in that case, you can solve those problems as well. And most of the easy CTFs copy those challenges. So you can do this one. And finally, I will ask, there is one more CTF that is coming up. That is called the Darkon CTF. Try that one. I'll provide the link in the Telegram group as well. Manish Bhaiya is actually a co-author of the challenge. So, Pico CTFs, yeah. Krishna, by the way, stop the recording. You're done.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
So
Is
yeah,
there any sort of book available if someone is using Linux for a long time, but yeah, useful command sort of thing?
Just